नमस्ते प्रिय मित्राणि, युष्माकं संस्कृतभाषायां संस्कृतसम्भाषणे संस्कृतपठने संस्कृतबोधने च सम्यक् प्रगतिर्भवति, आत्मविश्वासस्य च वर्धनं भवति इति अहम् आशां करोमि। गतसप्ताहे वयं सन्धेः परिचयं प्राप्तवन्तः। तत्र स्वरसन्धेः परिचयः आसीत्। अस्मिन् सप्ताहे वयं व्यञ्जनसन्धेः परिचयं प्राप्तवन्तः, अभ्यासान् च कृतवन्तः। अद्य वयं विसर्गसन्धेः इतोपि गभीरबोधं प्राप्स्यामः। अस्तु, so namaste dear friends, and I sincerely hope that your confidence with the language, especially with its spoken aspect, written comprehension, has all increased significantly, and that you're happy with the progress that you're making. In the previous week we looked at the introduction to the sandhis and we looked at the swara sandhis. And in this week we were focusing on the Vyanjana Sandhi, or the sandhis with the consonants, and today we are going to be looking at the Visarga Sandhi. So today's module, which is module 4, we will be doing the revision of the sandhis, and lecture 12 will focus on the revision of the Visarga Sandhis along with some rules of the niyama and practice. The concepts that will be covered here are a quick look at the Maheshwara Sutrani or the Shiva Sutrani, and I hope that you're gaining a little more practice with it and you're a little more confident with the different sutras that are there. We'll do a revision, a quick revision of the sandhis, types of sandhis, the definition of the Visarga Sandhi, look at the types of Visarga Sandhi Bhedaha, which are about 5 of them, with examples and practice. Then we'll do a revision of the table with important Visarga Sandhis and some practice, conversation for building of vocabulary and the application of the points learnt, and then we look at the verses, some verses defining and classifying ahimsa or non-violence, which is the next value that we will be looking at in the context of dharma. And to close, we'll have some quotes on ahimsa by Swami Sivananda and Martin Luther King. So Maheshwara Sutrani atra santi, vayam ekavaram militva tat kathayama. A I un rilrik e ong I ouch hayavarat lan nyamangananam jhabhai ghadhadhash jabagadash khapachathathachatav kapai shashasar hal. So especially before this khapachathatha, it's always a good idea to take a deep breath so that you're able to do it in one go. Astu, tari etat kripaya mukhastham kurvantu. Definitions of sandhi yat purvamapi asmabhi drishtamasti kaha sandhi varnanam atishayitah sannidhihi sandhihi sandhe phalachatushtayam adeshah yatha yadi plus api yadyapi tat shatruvad bhavati agamah tatra patan plus asti patan asti praveshah bhavati nakarasya tad mitravad bhavati lopah ubhau plus api ubha api औकारस्य तत्र लोपः भवति प्रकृतिभावः यथा पूर्वं तथैव तिष्ठति हरि एतौ इत्येव भवति। सन्धिभेदाः के सन्ति तत्र स्वर अथवा अच् सन्धिः, व्यञ्जन अथवा हल् सन्धिः, पुनः विसर्गसन्धिः। अत्र वयं विसर्गसन्धिं नीत्वा अग्रे अध्ययनं करिष्यामः। विसर्गसन्धिः कः? विसर्गस्य स्थाने आदेशादयः विसर्गसन्धिः। विसर्गसन्धिः तत्र के भेदाः सन्ति? सो एकः विषयम् अत्र पुनर्वक्तुम् इच्छामि यत् भेदाः नियमिताः भवन्ति. सो द टाइप्स ऑफ सन्धीस् आर प्रिटी लिमिटेड, बट तत् प्राप्तुं यानि सूत्राणि सन्ति, ये नियमाः सन्ति, तानि अधिकानि सन्ति. ओके, सो the types of sandhis are quite limited, but the rules in order to arrive at those types of sandhis can be many, and we are only going to be looking at a selected few. तर्हि विसर्गसन्धे भेदाः प्राथमिकरूपेण पञ्च एव सन्ति, ओन्ली 5 टाइप्स. सकारः सन्धि, रेफसन्धि, विसर्गलोपः भवति, पुनः उकारः भवति, अन्ते जिह्वामूलीयः उपध्मानीयः च. So let's look at the first sandhi, which is the sakara sandhi. Atra kim vadati? Ka kha pa phan varjayitva karkasha vyanjane khari pare visargasya sakaradesho bhavati. So in the karkasha vyanjanani, which are the first and second letters plus the ushmanas, you've got the without taking into consideration the ka, kha, pa, pha. Okay, other than these letters, for all the rest of it, you will have to replace the visarga with the sakaradeshaha. And then it says sha, sha, sa ityeteshu pareshu tu vikalpena sakaro bhavati. So by an option, you can leave it as a sakara there. Now, imam eva niyamam evam va vaktum shakyate. So I want to also just mention that this is being taken from the book Sandhi by Mahabaleshwara Bhattaji, who's written these books for Sanskrita Bharati. So he's saying that imam eva niyamam evam va vaktum shakyate. You can also place it in this particular manner. Visargasya ta thayoho parayoho sakaraha. So if the visarga is followed by a ta and tha, it will become a sakara. It's all a phonetic dental rule there. So same group. Cha chayoho parayoho shakara. So if a cha or cha follows, visarga becomes a shakara. Ta thayoho parayoho shakaraha. So if there is a ta or tha that follows, it becomes a shakaraha. Sha sha sa ityeteshu pareshu vikalpena krama sha sha sa va adesho bhavati. So you will get a option of keeping it as sha sha sa, etc. Let's look at some examples. तरी सकार संधे किं भवति विसर्ग प्लस कर्कश व्यंजनानि स भवति तरी बालः प्लस तत्र what was the rule? The ta before the ta becomes a sa, so balas tatra. Ramah plus cha ramascha, and then it says idam avadheyam. So there's an extra thing to be taken into consideration. Cha cha sha ityeteshu pareshu chutva sandhi. So this is the chutva sandhi that we looked at in the vyanjana sandhi part of it. Ta tha sha ityeteshu pareshu shtutva sandhischa sakaradeshanantaram bhavati. Okay, so that's the change that the sa undergoes depending on the letter that follows it. Tari dayamanaha plus tittibhaha becomes dayamanash tittibhaha. Astu. Moving on, we've got the visarga plus the sha sha sa. What happens in that case? Payaha plus sheetalam becomes payash sheetalam. So there's a doubling of that same letter, or it stays the same as payaha sheetalam. Next, Shridharaha plus Shashthaha kim bhavati? Shridharash Shashthaha or Shridharaha Shashthaha. Next, Bhaktaha plus Sevate, Bhaktas Sevate uta Bhaktaha Sevate. Parivartanam tatra na bhavati. Abhyasam kurmaha militva. Astu. Tari unnataha taruhu kim bhavishyati? Unnatas taruhu. Uttamam. Astu. Anantaram tatra purnaha chandraha purnash uttamam chandraha. Tari bhavantaha satyameva panditaha bhavanti atra. Abhyasam krita uttamam. Sthiraha thakuraha uttamam. Thakura thakur bhagavan ityeva arthaha. Sthirash Kuraha. Astu. Punaha tatra dhavitaha chhatraha kim bhavishyati? Dhavitash chhatraha. Uttamam. Antimam praptaha tataha. Uttamam. Praptas tataha. Astu. स्पष्टमस्ति. अग्रे पश्यामः. स्वभावः सौम्यः किं भविष्यति? तस्य द्वित्वं भवितुम् अर्हति. स्वभावः सौम्यः और अत्र भवितुम् अर्हति स्वभावः समानम् एव तिष्ठति तत्र. ओके, अहम् एकवारं लिखामि, अनन्तरम् अग्रे अवगच्छामः. स्वभावः सौम्यः. ओके, स्वभावः सौम्यः. आगामि किमस्ति? नरः षट् किं भविष्यति? नरः षट् उत समानं तिष्ठति. जगतः शान्तिः किं भविष्यति? जगतः शान्तिः. उत्तमम्। अस्तु, तर्हि अग्रे गच्छामः। द्वितीयप्रकारकसन्धि विसर्गसन्धिः अस्ति रेफसन्धिः। तर्हि तत्र कः नियमः अस्ति? अ आ इत्येतौ वर्जयित्वा, दोषः अस्ति। तर्हि अ आ इत्येतौ वर्जयित्वा स्वरात् इचः परस्य विसर्गस्य स्वरे मृदुव्यञ्जने च अशिपरे रेफादेशो भवति। अव्ययसम्बन्धिनो विसर्गस्य अकारात् आकारात् परस्य अपि परस्यापि रेफादेशो भवति। कः नियमः अस्ति तत्र? तर्हि अ आ इत्येतौ विना स्वरः, सो अदर देन् अ आ ऑल द अदर स्वरास् प्लस द विसर्गः, अत्र विसर्गः स्यात् प्लस द स्वराः और मृदुव्यञ्जनानि विल बिकम अ रकार। यथा मुनिः प्लस इति, सो विदाउट द अ एंड आ, मुनिः प्लस इति विल बिकम मुनिरिति। उत्तमं। धनुः प्लस गच्छति धनुर्गच्छति। द्वितीयः नियमः तत्र कः अस्ति? अव्ययसम्बन्धी विसर्गः स्वरः प्लस मृदुव्यञ्जनानि तत्रापि रकारः भवति। यथा पुनः अत्र विल बिकम पुनरत्र। प्रातः गच्छति प्रातर्गच्छति। उत्तमम्। अत्र कः इतोपि नियमः योजितः अस्ति? व्हाट इज द एक्स्ट्रा रूल दैट कम्स इन देयर? विसर्गसन्धेः चतुर्थेन नियमेन अत्र उकारो न भवति इति स्मरणीयम्। Okay, so although there is an a that follows it, you also have the ukara, another later sandhi type that we look at. It doesn't become punotra because atra it's an avyaya padam, and therefore that particular rule will not apply in this context. Astu. अभ्यासं कुर्मः मिलित्वा। तर्हि गुरुः उवाच, एतत् सरलम् अस्ति। इफ् यु से इट् फास्ट् सरलं भवति। गुरुः उवाच, गुरुरुवाच। उत्तमम्। अस्तु, नेक्स्ट् प्रभोः आदेशः प्रभोरादेशः। अस्तु, उच्चैः उक्त्वा लिखन्तु कृपया। अस्तु, मातुः उपदेशः मातुरुपदेशः। उत्तमम्। नेक्स्ट् कविः गच्छति, अत्र लिखामि कविर्गच्छति। उत्तमम्। अग्रे गच्छामः। सो गतिः इयं किं भविष्यति? गतिर्दियम्। एण्ड् तैः उक्तं तैरुक्तम्। अस्तु, स्पष्टमस्ति? अग्रे पश्यामः एतत्। तर्हि अव्ययसम्बन्धिनी विसर्गः प्लस स्वराः और मृदुव्यञ्जनानि तेन अपि रकारः भवति। यथा अस्माभिः दृष्टं। प्रातः इच्छति प्रातरिच्छति। बहु जनाः प्रातः प्रातः चायम् इच्छन्ति, प्रातरिच्छति चायम् इति भवति कदाचित्। पुनः मिलामः, किं भविष्यति? उत्तमम्। पुनर्मिलामः। अग्रे बहिः अङ्गः बहिरङ्गः। एंड फाइनली अन्तः प्लस अङ्गः अन्तरङ्गः। तर्हि गतवर्गे वयं दृष्टवन्तः, when we were talking of pratyahara and all, we were looking at in the ashtanga yoge tatra the first 5 limbs angaha tatra bahirangah santi, अन्तिमत्रयम् अन्तरङ्गः सन्ति इत्युक्ते अन्तरङ्ग योगे अन्तर्भूतः भवति इति। अस्तु, तर्हि अन्तरङ्गः। So let's look at the next type of sandhi, visarga sandhi, which is the lopah sandhi. अत्र कः नियमः अस्ति? आकारात् परस्य विसर्गस्य स्वरे मृदुव्यञ्जने च परे अशि लोपो भवति. So what is ash? Ash here, ash includes the swara and the mriduvyanjanas. All right. So किं भवति अत्र? आ plus visarga ah in general followed by a swara and mriduvyanjanani will drop off. The visarga will drop off. एषः सन्धि बहु सरला सन्धि अस्ति. तर्हि बालाः प्लस अत्र विसर्गस्य लोपः भवति, बाला अत्र इत्येव भवति. अत्र पुनः एका सूचना अस्ति. दिस् एन् इन्फर्मेशन् देर्. स्वरे परे विसर्गस्य विकल्पेन यकारोपि भवति. सो आफ्टर् अ swara sometimes you can also have a yakara as a option there. So, for example, bala atra can also be balai atra, and similarly you can have matai edhante. Now, you can put this together in another sandhi there as Ramaya gacchati, which is a combination of Ramai plus agacchati, and then you can have Krishna yeti, which is a combination of Krishnai plus eti. Uttamam. Kintu yakaropetasya prayogaha viralah. So you hardly encounter this kind of a sandhi generally. Let's look at another example. Atra taha gachanti ta gachanti saralam asti. Next kimasi tatra akarat parasya visargasya akaram varjayitva sware pare lopo bhavati. Yatha a plus visarga plus akaram vina swaraha, you will get the lopaha. So if the previous word ends with and the next word starts with any swara other than then it will again have a visarga lopaha. So Ramaha plus agacchati will be Rama agacchati. Astu. So let's look at the next two rules that are there in the context of the lopa sandhi. The first one here is the eshaha plus saha ityanayoho padayor visargasya akaram vina yat kinchid varne pare lopo bhavati. So what is it saying? That if you have a saha or a eshaha followed by a visargaha plus an akara vina, any varna, any letter other than the akara, then the visarga will drop. You see, it's quite easy here actually. So what happens? Saha plus agacchati, sa agacchati. Eshaha plus ichhati, esha ichhati. Uttamam. Agami niyamaha kim vadati? You've got the akaram varjayitva swakarat parasya visargasya rephe pare lopo bhavati. Alright, and then it says lope krite purva swara dirgha cha bhavati. So there are two steps in this. First step says that if you have akaram varjayitva swarat parasya visargasya rephe pare lopo bhavati. So if you have other than the akara any other swara like kavihi plus you have a rakara that follows it, then there is a lopaha first step. So kavi rachayati. Then lope krite purva swara dirgha cha bhavati. So the purva swara, the ikara becomes long and you have the final form which is kavi rachayati. It says avyaya sambandhinaha visargasya akarat parasyapi lopo bhavati. So in the case, because here it says other than the akara, but they are saying in the context of an avyaya, you also have the same rules, which means that punaha plus ramate, the first step is punna ramate, which is your lopa. Next, what will happen? There is a dirghi karanam of the akara, tari puna ramate. So although you have punaha ramate to this, you know that there is that intermediate stage of the lopaha that is there. Tari idam eva vadheyam kim asti visarga lope krite nimittasya sadbhavepi swara sandhi na kartavyah. So sometimes like here you've got sa agacchati. So although you can do a swara sandhi with sa and agacchati, you should not do it there. Astu, that is what this rule is saying. Abhyasam kurma militva tari atra kim bhavati? Ashwaha dhavanti uttamam. Ashwa dhavanti. Etad bahu saralam asti. Next, putraha jata. Putra jata. Agami kim asti? Chandraha udeti. Kim bhavishyati? Chandra plus udeti. Okay, because it is other than. It's starting with a different vowel other than the akara. The plus can be removed because that's the final form tatra. Astu. Naraha plus iva? Nara iva. Uttamam. Saha pashyati? Sa pashyati. Okay. Or you can even say pashyati. The shakara can be done in that way. Next, eshaha uvacha. Esha uvacha. Astu. Tatra shakara asti. Next, pituhu rajyam. So, pituhu plus rajyam. Remember the step, first step is pitu, drop of the thing, and rajyam. And then the second step is dirghi karanam of the vowel, pitu rajyam. Astu. Last one, murtihi plus rachita. We'll directly go to the answer. Murti Rachita. Astu spashtam asti? Agre gacchama. Atra chaturtha sandhi prakaraka sandhi asti ukara sandhihi. Akarat parasya visargasya akare mridu vyanjane cha, that's a hashi, pare ukaro bhavati. Yatha ukare krite gunasandhir avasyam karaniyam. Akare pare gunanantaram purva rupa sandhi api kartavyah. Okay, so what is it saying here? Akarat parasya visargasya. So a plus visarga. Akare mridu vyanjane cha hashi pare, that's the hash. Pare ukaro bhavati. So you've got the ukara that will happen. Then what does it say? Ukare krite gunasandhir eva gunasandhi avasyam karaniyam. So these are all the rules that we have got there. So you have to make it into an okara. So ukara becomes an okara tatra. And finally, akare pare gunanantaram purva rupa sandhi api kartavyah. Then you have to do the purva rupa sandhi here. So what does it become? Ramaha plus api becomes Ramopi. So visarga is replaced by the ukara, then there is u plus akara, it becomes an o, and then you do a purva rupa and it becomes Ramopi. Next, Balaha hasati, Balo hasati. This is in the context of the mridu vyanjanas that we have. Astu, abhyasa atra kaha aham? Koham. Big philosophical question. Who am I? Kaha aham. Okay, koham. And the great answer that is there in our Upanishads, kimasti? I am that. Soham. This is one of the most powerful, simple mantras to do. I am that, and keep reminding yourself, I am not this little petty self that is struggling, that is suffering. While all that has its own level of reality, I am not essentially that. Aham tan matram nasmi. Mama satyam tatopi urdhvam ekam satyam. I am something which is far beyond, and recognizing that can sometimes allow us to handle challenges in our life that look much greater than we have the capacity to deal with them. So this possibility of connecting to that infinite, omnipotent, omniscient reality, it's a story that the Indian tradition has subscribed to, because that's the realization. It's a story, it's not just a fiction. This is a story that has been arrived at through years and years of dedicated practice, rigorous experimentation of the inner worlds. So according to the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara or the Indian psychology, when we ask the question, Koham, who am I? The essential answer is, I am that. Soham iti. Shitaha plus Vayu kim bhavishyati? Shito Vayuhu. Astu? Antimam, Dhiyaha plus Yaha plus Naha kim bhavishyati? Do you recognize this, where it's coming from? Uttavam, coming from the Gayatri mantra. Dhiyo yo Naha iti bhavati. Idam avadheyam asti. Nimittasya sadbhavepi avyaya sambandhino visargasya ukaro na bhavati. So, for example, you have punaha plus atra will not become punotra like we had seen previously. It will become punaratra. Repha rule will apply here. And prataha gacchati, pratar gacchati, not prato gacchati, according to this rule. Astu? Antimaha atra prakaraha visarga sandhehe. So the last type of visarga sandhi rule that we have here is jifva mulyaha upadmaniyaha sandhihi. What is it saying? Ka kha ityetayoho parayoho. This is represented like that. Jifva mulyaha pa pha ityayoho parayoho upadmaniyaha. Upadmaniyascha visargasya sthane vikalpena bhavati. So what are they saying? That if you have a visarga followed by a ka or kha or pa or pha, there is a difference that happens. So jifva mulya is when you do balakaha karoti becomes balaka karoti. It's in the throat. Or balakaha balaha karoti. So the second one is tarunaha khanati becomes tarunak khanati or tarunaha khanati. Next, atra asti chhatraha praskidati kim bhavati. So, chhatrak kridati or chhatraha kridati. Samanam tishtati. Next, janakah khadati, janakak khadati or Janaka khadati. So let's just do that. Janaka khadati. Or you have the alternative of the unchanged form. Next kim asti atra, after a visarga plus a per, it becomes an upadmaniyah. Krishnaha plus pibati, Krishnaf, it becomes a first sound. Krishnaf pibati or Krishnaha pibati. Vrikshaha plus phalati, Vrikshaf phalati or Vrikshaha phalati. Naha plus prachodayat kim bhavashiti? Naf prachodayat. Bells ringing, with that Gayatri mantra asti. We don't necessarily always do that, but atra niyamanusaram vikalpatvena kartum shakyate. Okay, you can do it as an optional thing here. Purnamadaf, so Purnamadaf, Purnamidam. Okay, so Purnamadaf, Purnamidam. This is the Shanti mantra of the Ishopanishad. Idam avadheya matra. So kshap, sap, sa ityeteshu pareshu visargah eva shruyate. Na jifva muliyo padmaniyo. It's a mahaprana there, tatra. So jifva muliyo padmaniyo nava sakaraha. Okay, so for example, Dasharataha kshatriyaha will remain as such. Adbhihi satam will remain as such. Kaha saruhu, saruhu means the khadgaha or the sword will remain as such. Okay, there is none of these other rules that we've looked at will apply. Now, namaskaroti has various possibilities. It can either remain namaha karoti or namak karoti, in which case the visarga will have to go. It becomes namak karoti. Iti tridha prayoga, all are acceptable. Similarly, with puraskaroti ityatra sakara eva bhavati. So, although it's puraha karoti, it will not get the other options like in namaha karoti. Next, tritiya niyamah asti tatra etan niyamanantarbhutaha kechana santi yatha avishkritam nishpratyuham gushkritam. It's not gushkritam, atra it will be dushkritam. Typo asti tatra. Astu. Next, sarpishkundika, ayaskaraha, ayaskumbhaha, ayaspatram ityadayah. Ete cha siddhanta kaumuditaha jneyah. So, yatha asmabhi drishtamasi, in every context there are general rules and then there are exceptions and then there are exceptions and exceptions. So, this is trying to give you a taste of the fact that while in most contexts we will be able to apply these rules, one has to have that little bit of extra understanding of how it applies in a specific context. Now let's move on with the revision of the table with important combinations of visarga sandhis along with some practice. So this is a simplified table a little bit that has been created by Dr. Narendra, and we've also had a look at it in our previous course, the intermediate course, and this is part of his book, The Functional Sanskrit, its communicative aspects, that is available from Pondicherry Sri Aurobindo Ashram. And in this one he has just tried to plot the previous letters with the visarga and the letters that will follow with it. So just for our own practice, let's try and see what happens, how you will fill it up. So you've got aha plus a kim bhavati and kaha sandhi tatra bhavati, kidrisha sandhi ukarah iti bhavati. Tari aha plus a kim bhavati? Oh, uttamam. Aha plus a kim bhavati? Balakaha agachanti. For example, kim bhavishati? Balaka agachanti. Tatra bhavati. Next kim asti tatra? So atra a and tatra agre api bhavitum arhati. Next swara sahita visargaha yatha ihi. Tari kavihi. Ihi. Tari kavihi plus a avarjam. Swara sahita visargaha plus a. Kavihi asti kim bhavishyati? Tatra kavirasti. Tari purvam anantaram cha bhavati. Astu spashtam asti etat evameva anyatra api purayama. Agre gatva pashyama katham puritam atra drishyate. So this is a much more comprehensive table where you've got all the different connections. Maybe we can just do one or two examples and anantaram swatantra rupena swasamayanusaram etasya uttaram lekhitum prayatnam kurvantu. Atra asti suryah udayati kim bhavishyati? Tari kim bhavati tatra? Suryah udayati. Atra pashyama suryah plus avarjam kopi swaraha kim bhavati? Visarga lopaha. Ataha सूर्य उदयति. अस्तु, एतत् कीदृशः सन्धिः अस्ति? लोपसन्धिः. उत्तमम्. अग्रे एकं पश्यामः, अन्यदेकं पश्यामः, अनन्तरं अग्रे गच्छामः. नमः नमः किं भवति? सामान्यतया किं भवति तत्र? नमो नमः. अस्तु, कीदृशसन्धिः अस्ति तत्र? एतदस्ति अस्माकं. तर्हि नमः प्लस् नकार. नकार तत्र किं भवति? नकार तत्र मृदुव्यञ्जनेषु अन्तर्भवति. अतः नमः प्लस् नम नमो नमः इत्येव रूपं भविष्यति. अस्तु, तर्हि इदानीं वयं छात्राः आगच्छन्ति. एतेषां रूपाणि भवन्तः स्वयमेव प्रयत्नं कुर्वन्तु. एकं सम्भाषणं कुर्व. नमस्ते पीयूष.
प्रणामः आर्ये. अद्य किं सम्भाषणं करिष्यावः?
अद्य आवां गायत्रीमन्त्रस्य विसर्गसन्धीनां नियमान् द्रक्ष्यावः. एषः सुप्रसिद्धः मन्त्रः ऋग्वेदे विश्वामित्रेण श्रुतः अस्ति.
भवती कृपया गायत्रीमन्त्रम् उच्चारयिष्यति किम्?
आम्, प्रयासं करोमि. ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्.
सुन्दरम् आर्ये.
धन्यवादः. गायत्रीमन्त्रस्य सन्धीनां नियमान् वक्तुं शक्नोषि किम्?
आम् आर्ये, जानामि. प्रयासं करोमि.
उत्तमम्. भूर्भुवः इत्यत्र कः सन्धिः अस्ति? पुनः भुवः प्लस् स्वः उत स्वः इत्यत्र कः सन्धिः अस्ति? कृपया वद.
आर्ये, अत्र भुः भुवः इति पदद्वयस्य मध्ये रेफसन्धिः जातः. भुवः प्लस् सुवः और स्वः इत्यत्र च सकारसन्धिः भवति.
उत्तमम्. सवितुर्वरेण्यम् इत्यत्र कः सन्धिः अस्ति?
आर्ये, अत्रापि समानसन्धिः रेफसन्धिरेव विद्यते.
तर्हि भर्गो देवस्य पुनः धियो यो नः इत्येतेषु सन्दर्भेषु के सन्धयः वर्तन्ते?
भर्गः धियः तथा यः इति पदेषु उकारसन्धिरेव उपयुक्त अस्ति.
उत्तमम्. पीयूष, अन्तिमः एकः सन्धिः अवशिष्टः अस्ति. यथा आवां पाठे अपश्याव, नः प्रचोदयात् इत्यत्र उपद्मानीयः इति सन्धिः भवितुम् अर्हति, येन नः प्रचोदयात् इत्युच्चारणम् अपि भवितुं शक्नोति. तर्हि लोपसन्धिं विहाय अन्ये सर्वेपि सन्धयः सन्त्यत्र, नैव?
आम्.
चलतु मिलित्वा एकवारं गायामः.
अस्तु आर्ये.
ॐ भवन्तः अपि मिलित्वा गायन्तु. ॐ भूर्भुवः सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
पुनर्मिलामः.
पुनर्मिलामः. Now let's look at the general definition of dharma. Maya saha gayantu. Kshama satyam dama shaucham danamindriya sanyamaha ahimsa guru shushrusha tirthanusaranam daya ajavam lobha shunyatvam deva brahmana pujanam anabhyasuya cha tatha dharma samanya uchyate iti. अद्य वयम् अहिंसायाः लक्षणानि द्रक्ष्यामः. अस्तु, तर्हि what's the general definition of ahimsa? It says वाङ् मनः कायैः परपीडाभावे प्राणिपीडानिवृत्तौ अशास्त्रीयप्राणिपीडनाभावे च ahimsa paramo dharma iti smritihi. This is according to Vachaspatyam. And what is it saying? Vang manah kayai parapida bhave prani pida nivrittau ashastriya prani pidana bhave cha ahimsa paramo dharma iti smritihi. What does it mean? It's saying that parapida bhavaha, non-hurting of others through speech, thoughts and actions. Vang manah kayai. Alright. Prani pida nivrittihi. So what does it mean? Abstaining from hurting other creatures. And ashastriya prani pidana bhavaha, absence of hurting creatures in ways not subscribed by the Shastras or according to the law of the land. Now just one thing is, sometimes there are certain instances when one might have to do some kind of a violence, some kind of a hinsa, but it has to be done according to the laws of the land is what is being suggested here. And what more, it's saying that this is the paramo dharma, this is the highest kind of a truth, or this is the highest kind of duty or law that one should follow. Why, we will see ahead. So we have the commentator Ananda who is saying here, ahimsa kaya vang manobhi sarvada sarvabhutanam ahimsanam, and this is in the Yoga Sudhakara Vrittihi, in the Yoga Sutram. So what is it saying? It says that non-violence is the practice of not hurting any creature through action, speech and thoughts at all times. So ahimsa kaya vang manobhihi sarvada sarvabhutanam, of all creatures at all times, sarvada ahimsanam is non-hurting of anybody. Okay, and this is according to the commentator Ananda in his work Yoga Sudhakara Vrittihi, which is a commentary on the text, the Yoga Sutram. Anantaram Vyasa Bhashye ki muktam asti, saha vadati ahimsa sarvatha sarvada sarvabhutanam anabhidrohaha. So Sankhya Pravachana Bhashye asti etat. So what is he saying? That non-violence is the non-causation of harm, anabhidrohaha, under any circumstances, sarvatha, and at all time, sarvada, and sarvabhutanam should have been towards all creatures. Astu. So sarva bhutanam also needs to be included in that translation. So moving on. Ahimsa is the foundation of the yama and the niyamaha. As Vyasa says in his Bhashyam, yama niyamas tan mulaha. It is the foundation of the yamaha and the niyamaha. Yamaha ke santi tatra hinsa satya steya brahmacharya parigraha yamaha. In the Yoga Sutram. Okay, he says which are the ones? Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya and aparigraha. And aparigraha, you see there is a visarga lopa that has happened there. Now, ke niyamaha santi shaucha santosha tapaswadhyayeshwara pranidhanani niyamaha. What is the meaning of this whole thing? You've got the ahimsa as the source of the 5 yamas, namely the satya, asteya, brahmacharyam and aparigraha. The 5th one is ahimsa itself, and of the 5 niyamaha, which are shaucha, santosha, tapah, swadhyaya and ishvara pranidhanam. So what is satya? Truth. Asteya, non-stealing. Brahmacharyam, celibacy. Aparigraha, non-hoarding. Shaucham is cleanliness. Santosha is contentment. Tapaha is austerity. Swadhyaya, self-study. And ishvara pranidhana, the devotion towards Lord. And we see here also that there are 81 levels of himsa. But ahimsa is the negation of himsa. What is himsa? So this is Piyush's finding here. We've got 81 levels almost. So he says, Vitarka hinsa dayaha krita karitanu modita lobha krodha moha purvaka mridu madhyadhi matra dukkha jnana dukkha ajnana. So dukkha jnana ananta phalaha iti Pratipaksha Bhavanam. This is also in the Yoga Sutram. And what are they saying here? There are all lot of sandhi applied here. Visarga sandhaya atra santi yad vitarkaha. Visarga sandhi tatra visarga se lopa asti. Similarly, moditaha visarga se lopa asti. Purvakaha lopa asti. Matraha tatra lopa asti. Phalaha tatra lopa asti. Okay, so what is it saying? The obstructions to yoga are killing, falsehood, etc. Whether committed as in krita, karita, caused or approved, anumodita, either through avarice or anger or ignorance. that is lobha, krodha, moha purvakaha, whether slight, middling or great, that is mridu, madhya, adhimatra, and they result in infinite ignorance and misery. Dukkha, ajnana, ananta phala iti pratipaksha bhavanam. This is the method of thinking the contrary. Now, what is it saying here? That when we are talking of these different qualities, in this particular plot that Piyush has done, he's shown you that in one, just under Krita, up to Mo Atimatra, you have got about 27 varieties. You multiply that, so you've got 1 and then 3 and 3, all of this together here is 9, and then you have the same permutations and combinations for Karita and Anumodita, and then you've got these subdivisions. So if you do the permutations and combinations of this entire chart, you'll come to about 81 levels of Himsa. So Vyasa in his Bhashyam is saying, Ityevam Saptavimshatir Bheda Bhavanti Himsayaha. So there are 27 types of varieties of Himsa. Which are they? The basic ones that he said, Krita, the first 3, those 3 of each of them, and 3 of each of those varieties also. And then he goes on to say, on his own, he says, Evameka Shitir Bheda Hinsa Bhavanti. So he's saying that you add another permutation and combination of Mridu and Madhya and Adhimatra, and altogether you will get about 81 permutations and combinations. And then he is saying further, he says, Sa Punar Niyama Vikalpa Samuchaya Bhedat Asankheya. Okay, so you can further add on to the fact that they can either be classified as lawful or as an alternative or as a totality. Furthermore, he says, Pranabhrid Bhedasya Aparisankheyatvat iti. So, and done for supporting life or not, etc. And finally, Evam Anritadishwapi Yojyam. So, as other classifications, and finally, whether it is done in the right way or not is another kind of category there. So, largely what you see is that there are finer and finer shades of what violence is all about, and it can happen at various levels with various intensities and with various justifications as well. Okay, so it's a very complex, but what is amazing is the thought that has gone into the detailing of what Himsa is all about. And to conclude, a quote by Swami Sivananda, he says, Ahimsa is not mere negative non-injury, it is positive cosmic love. It is the development of a mental attitude in which hatred is replaced by love. Ahimsa is true sacrifice, ahimsa is forgiveness, ahimsa is Shakti, ahimsa is true strength. And then we've got this quote by Martin Luther King, who says that the center of non-violence stands the principle of love, and he was inspired by the movement of Gandhiji in order to help bring about great civil reforms in the US. So there are some references here for you. I'd just like to mention that Veda Belgium at the end has got some excellent mantras that you can listen to and learn from. So, Bahu Dhanyavadaha, a lot in that. We end the Sandhi part with this. Tari Kripaya Abhyasam Kurvantu, Adhika Abhyasena, Adhika Etadrisha Rupanam, Prayoge Yushmakam Vishwasasya Vardhanam Bhavishati. Dhanyavadaha.